Occasionally, you're going to have a repo that you no longer need. Maybe the project has already shipped and you've archived it and moved it along somewhere else, or maybe a project has outlived its life cycle. For whatever reason, from time to time, you're going to need to get rid of a repo or two. So I'm going to show you how to very quickly and easily do that through the GitHub site. So over here on the right-hand side where we're switching between views, we have this one view down at the bottom for settings. And if I click on this, this allows us to go through the settings of our remote repo. Notice that we can turn features like having a wiki for this repo on, restricting edits to only collaborators once you establish those, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, whether or not you want to track issues for it, whether or not you want to use GitHub Pages for it. And then we have this very ominously named danger zone area. Danger, danger, danger. Okay, so we could transfer the ownership of the repository from us to another user. So maybe if somebody comes along and they take over project management of a project, you could transfer ownership to them and make them the central person for the repository. But there's also the nuclear option, as they say, and that is to delete the repository. And if I click on that, I get this little warning message that comes up that says unexpectedly bad things will happen. Essentially, what it wants you to realize is that you can't undo it. Once you delete it, it is gone. And that means all your wikis, all the issues, all the comments, everything permanently, no backseas, all right? And if you understand the consequences, they further make you type it in. So I have to type in the name of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and type in GitHub Basics. And I feel kind of bad about doing this because we worked so hard on this, but you have to type in the name of it. And then when you say, I understand the consequences, it's gone. We get a little message up here that says it was successfully deleted. And indeed, if I go to my accounts and click on repositories, it is not there. But all is not lost. If I go over to the GitHub client here on my Mac, I notice that the GitHub Basics repository is still here. And that's because it's a local repo, which means that I could certainly take this, still develop in it, and then create another remote repository and push it up into that if I wanted to. Now, of course, you can also delete your local repositories as well. If I click on the repositories, there's my GitHub Basics. I can simply right-click on this, and I can choose Remove. And when I do that, it removes the repository from the client. Now, did that really get rid of it? Well, if I look on github.com, it thinks it's still there. So if I do a refresh, notice it doesn't show that anymore, and it doesn't show it on my repositories. But if I go out to the Finder and I look under Repos, GitHub Basics, everything is still there. So what happened? Well, essentially what happened is in the client, when you delete a repository, you simply tell the client not to track that repo anymore. Don't really keep track of it. The repo is still there. The Git file is still there. If I really wanted to totally get rid of it, I would need to delete all of this stuff and throw it into the trash. All right, that's actually a good thing because if you do that by mistake, all is not lost. You can always come back in and say, hey, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to add that local repository back. I'm going to go out to my desktop, find my repos, find my GitHub Basics, and it's all back again. So sometimes not everything is permanent, all right? So that's the ins and outs of creating repos on the GitHub website, creating some files, editing those files, and we also talked a little bit about getting rid of the repositories when you no longer need them. In our next chapter, we're going to turn our attention to the GitHub client, which you're looking at right now, and we're going to look through its functionality in a little bit more detail.